Hello everyone, this is Erik, the Asian movie enthusiast, and this is my review of A Night in Nude, a Japanese dramatic thriller from 1993 that was directed by Takashi Ishii, the director who gave us titles such as Gonin 1 and 2 from 1995 and 1996, Black Angel 1 and 2 from 98 and 99, and Freeze Me from 2000. He directed A Night in Nude Salvation from 2010, the sequel to this film. I have reviews of all of those movies on my channel already, and Ishii is also well known for his Flower and Snake movies, which can get very exploitative. This one, not so much. So the following plot synopsis for A Night in Nude was taken from the website Japan on Film. Kojiro is eking out a living as a professional substitute, which means he'll do errands for people who are unwilling or unable to do them in person. Mostly, this means he attends funerals as a stand-in for a family or cleans gravestones on significant anniversaries, but other activities are possible. One day, a woman named Nami appears at his office/home and hires him to be her driver around Tokyo, claiming to be from out of town. As soon as he leaves her in her room, however, her hotel room, we find that she's been putting on an act. So if you're unfamiliar with this director, one of the first things that will pop out to you is that he has a very stylish presentation. Early on we get like a fancy bar, a blue rainstorm, a neon-lit apartment, etc. And there are lots of nighttime scenes in this, small restaurants on display. It's very moody and nicely shot, which helps to elevate A Night in Nude over some other similar kinds of films. Another distinction is that this movie has more of a streamlined plot that moves in a linear fashion, which helps to avoid some of the common flaws that appear in this kind of movie. Sometimes in films like this, certain scenes will drag out a bit too much. Maybe there's a little bit too much sexual content, or maybe the filmmakers try too much or rely too much on the visuals to carry things. But A Night in Nude avoids most of those problems by staying focused, and it's nicely paced and engaging. The main actor here is Naoto Takanaka, who is well known for his more comedic roles in films like Swing Girls or Shall We Dance. But he has done a number of more serious movies as well, this being one of them. And his character here is a normal guy, He's physically weak, and he cannot fight very well, which puts him in a situation where he could be in over his head when things start getting dangerous. In fact, he's initially not that excited about being this lady's tour guide, but he decides to take the job. He could use the money, and after a fun day of activities, they go to a hotel, and she has him sign her name on the hotel using some weird kanji, they were like the words for missing persons in Japanese. And she wants him to use his company address for the contact for signing into the hotel. Sounds like a pretty odd request, right? But, as part of his services, he probably was just assuming that she just wants privacy and anonymity while she rests. But as we quickly see, she's planning something nefarious, and our protagonist gets caught up in a dangerous situation. I like the character interaction in this one. I'll avoid spoilers. But what I will say is that it develops in ways that I was not expecting. Like early on, during the first act, I had certain predictions in my mind. But I was incorrect in some of my assumptions about, how the characters were going to line up. That's a good thing. If you've seen the follow-up A Night in Nude Salvation that I mentioned from 2010, it's very different from that one. Very different. The final act in particular is wildly different. But it's also pretty cool and satisfying in its own way. One particular element in this film reminded me of Freeze Me, which is another Ishii film. And if you've seen that one, you'll know when it pops up. It's like I don't know what I would call it. I don't want to explain too much, but you'll know when you see it. That's one of the interesting things about exploring a bunch of movies from one director. You'll see little similarities between films or ideas in earlier films like this that were expanded in later ones like Freeze Me. There are a few short scenes of violence in this, but Nothing too exploitative or crazy. This actually probably has less violence and nudity than a good number of this director's films, so it's a great one to start with if you're unfamiliar with this guy, to kind of ease you in. There's one really weird dream sequence that has an awesome practical effect, and that's a highlight scene for me. There are also some legitimate stunts involving a car and a body of water. It was actually pretty impressive. And some of the extended scenes in this are pretty interesting to watch. There's certain scenes that go on without an edit, but the director crafts it in a way that's really cool. That's a testament to his skills. So, if you're into, dramatic thrillers that have a little bit of an edge, a little bit of a naughty streak in it, I do recommend A Night in Nude, definitely, if you're in the mood for that. It's a little artsy, maybe a little bit weird at times, but it's stylish, One of my favorites from this director, I would say, and it would make a good introduction. Currently available streaming on YouTube. I'll leave a link in the description box for that. And it also received a sweet Blu-ray release by Third Window Films titled Four Tales of Nami. And as always, folks, I'll see you next time.